Hi, welcome once again. We are opening the files back into the Elvis conspiracy. I'm Jeff Dixon. I'm your host for this series where we're looking at the life and the death, and maybe the life, the death again, or maybe he didn't die, I don't know, of Elvis Presley. We're laying out evidence that by now has some of you thinking, did he really die, and what is going on? And maybe a bigger question, why do I care? Well, the reason for why do I care comes later in the series, so you just stay with us. We got a ton of stuff that we're going to share with you because as we've discovered time and time again and already told you, there's nothing simple or easy about the king of rock and roll all of a sudden leaving the building, as it were. And so in this episode, we're talking about the autopsy again, and all autopsies apparently are not automatic. If you go back in time, in 1991, there was a documentary that was shown on USA Network called The Elvis Files, hosted by Bill Bixby. You remember Bill Bixby, who's also passed away. He was the Dr. Banner of the Incredible Hulk television show where he turned into Lou Ferrigno, that actor Bill Bixby. According to the documentary, there was a lot of odd things that showed up in the autopsy of Elvis Presley. And then as the estate of Elvis Presley was put together and made public, there were a number of things that were missing in that. Members of the Elvis Presley fan clubs were pointing this out, and there were discrepancies within the report. For example, Elvis's diaries, all the photographs of his mother, Annalise Marie, his daughter, and only 7 pieces of jewelry were listed on Elvis's estate. Anybody who ever saw Elvis knows that he owned a lot of jewelry. And then who else would want the photographs? Surely they would be passed down eventually to Lisa Marie, but nowhere were they found. And there are also a few cars and a plane that were missing from that inventory as it was released, even though if you go to Graceland today, there are a number of cars that belong to Elvis Presley. They're on display, so just one car missing. Maybe that's not a big deal. He owned a number of planes over time. The last will and testament of Elvis Presley was made back in March 1977. It appointed his father, Vernon Presley, as executor and trustee of a residuary trust. Lisa Marie was going to be the sole heir. Now we know since then, with Lisa Marie's death, that Elvis's grandchild now is the inheritor of the Graceland estate. However, in the months leading up to Elvis's death, 2 life insurance policies were cashed in, and $1 million had been taken from a checking account. Now, the 2 life insurance policies were paid up, and so they were cashed in legally. There is yet another policy that was listed that, according to insurance officials, there's a 3rd policy that has never been cashed even till this day. That was a policy that wasn't paid up. And so if Elvis were alive, it would have been an offense to cash it in. There was also, on the medical examiner's report, a rumor that began to spread that Elvis's own signature was on the medical examiner's report. Now, if you look at the report, and we're going to put a picture of it up here on the screen as you're kind of watching this video, and you look closely, it certainly does look like Elvis's signature. But it seems to be a signature that was supposed to be on the address line, the address, Elvis Presley Boulevard, and the Elvis Presley signature seemed to be his. A handwriting expert has come along and looked at that and said, indeed, it does match the writing, the signature, the autograph of Elvis A. Presley. And so it begs the question, well, why would it match? And the answer to the question is, well, no. And the answer to the question is, it would only make sense if it really is Elvis's handwriting that Elvis filled out his own medical examiner's report. And behind that sentence, I put a number of question marks. If, for some reason, he was asked to fill it out, according to conspiracy theorists, as he scribbled it in cursive writing, he probably would have scribbled it in the same way that he would have done his autograph. Over the course of a lifetime, he must have signed millions of signatures, autographs over certain things. But according to handwriting analysis, it matches what's on the form. That's weird, no doubt about it. But is it evidence that he didn't die? Well, for some, it's evidence that he didn't die in August of '77. But listen to this. I think one of the most compelling arguments that's offered for the fact that Elvis may have had something to do with his own death was a tissue sample that was taken from a biopsy that Elvis had in 1975 in the hospital to check for hepatitis. The DNA from the 1975 sample is different than the DNA obtained from Elvis in the 1977 autopsy. A major news agency did an independent backup test and results were the same. So according to their report, which was published, and you can go look for it yourself, the autopsy tissue from Elvis in 1977 did not match the tissue sample from 1975, which leads people to believe that then the person that was autopsied was not Elvis Presley. So the DNA from Elvis's liver biopsy didn't match the DNA taken from his autopsy. Recently, Fox News did their series on Is Elvis Alive? And they asked the Presley estate, or they asked representatives of the Presley estate for some type of DNA sample so they could check this evidence for themselves. But as you might imagine, those requests were declined. Elvis Presley Enterprises and the Elvis Presley estate has no desire to feed or funnel information to conspiracy theorists with the idea, who dare to float the idea, that Elvis might have faked his own death, or in other words, didn't die. And so, what's in Elvis's autopsy is not automatically proof that Elvis left the building, or so say those who have dug into such things. So what do you think? What do you say? Are they just crazy? Are they just looking for something that's not there? Or are they raising enough questions to cause a moment or two of doubt that cause you to continue your investigation? Our hope here at the Elvis Conspiracy is that it raises enough doubt for you to be willing to consider your investigation, and that we get to be your host for that. And so in the future episodes, we're going to continue to offer you some information, some things, stuff to think about that will cause you to question, but then also look seriously at what it means to understand life and death, and particularly the life and death of Elvis Presley. So, until next time, I look forward to joining you right back here for more of the Elvis Conspiracy.